Welcome, everyone, to another podcast episode of the Elite Junior Profiles podcast. My name is Lane Howe, and I'm with my partner, Paul Peckton. We're with Coach Mike O'Grady from Chatham University this morning. And before I hand it over to Paul, I wanted to just hit a couple of notes on some recent news and partnerships that we've announced at Elite Junior Profiles. We're really excited to announce the new partnership with the USPHL, United States Premier Hockey League. That kicked off just a couple of weeks ago, and we're just really excited about our partnership with the league and the way that we're going to be working together to help the USPHL hockey players get more exposure. Also excited about our recent partnership announcement with Student Athlete World. We've got more news coming on that partnership very soon with a couple of really exciting things that will be happening in 2021 in partnership with SAW. If you listen to one of our most recent podcast episodes, we interviewed Taylor WENCZOWSKI of the Boston Pride. She plays for UNH and was recently drafted by the Boston Pride out of the NWHL. And check out our recent podcast episode with Taylor. We went deep with her on her journey through youth hockey and into college hockey and now playing professional women's hockey. That was a really fun and awesome episode. Check that out on our podcast page. We also just recently announced a partnership with Beyond Hoops Africa, and my partner Paul can maybe make a few mentions about that if you'd like, Paul.
Yeah, James Camus is the gentleman over there that is working with a group of players in South Africa that he is diligently getting these guys exposure and getting some of these kids into college. And it's remarkable what he's doing with what little resources he has. And he's also working with a soccer program over there that he's working with. So I'm really excited about partnering up with him because he was so excited about our platform and how we can help his guys get in front of college coaches, both boys and girls over there. So that's just kicking off right now. So we're going to wait and see what happens. But he's very excited. He's got a lot of guys over there that can possibly get him in front of college coaches. So.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing is we're donating a free profile to underprivileged or underserved athletes in the third world, like in Africa. So we're excited to helping out and doing our part to try and help kids who are really great athletes and students who have the opportunity to or get the opportunity to play at the college level, here in the States, and working with Beyond Hoops, a great organization. We're really excited about that. We also just recently announced a partnership with the University of Georgia Hockey, great program, and also a partnership with both youth and junior teams of the Carolina Junior Hurricanes organization as well. And, our partnership with the Wisconsin Dells Ducks was just recently announced. That was about 3 weeks ago, I believe. So lots of new things happening. We're excited about all the coaches and organizations that we're working with. And at this point, I'd like to get into our interview today with Coach O'Grady with Chatham University. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Coach Paul, why don't you take it off from here?
Well, Coach O'Grady is coming into his second season here with Chatham University after a very successful first year. And Mike, can you do us a favor and tell the listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into coaching, especially in the women's level?
Yeah. I kind of always knew I was going to go into athletics, exercise science undergrad at John Carroll University, went there to play ACHA hockey. And unfortunately, I had the story we talk about as coaches, right? Would you be happy if you got hurt? And, I got hurt, ended my career playing, but, the staff there with the hockey program at John Carroll, a debt of gratitude, because they kept me on as an assistant. So I worked there as an assistant with the ACHA program. We played out of Gilmore Academy. So, helped out with some of their teams and stuff, doing some goalie coaching and everything through my 4 years there, which was great. And then I actually, upon graduation, I worked as a strength and conditioning coach, had applied to everything that was open, both men and women jobs and graduate assistant positions and all those type of things. And, ended up at Mercyhurst as a volunteer assistant with their women's program, just where I got my foot in the door and took the opportunity to go there, work with their Division I team for 2 years. Got my master's at Mercyhurst, which was great. Learned a lot from Coach Sissy, and the staff there. We had some really successful years. My second year, we made it to the NCAA tournament, which was awesome. And then from there, I went to the University of Maine as a full-time assistant. Ricky and Sarah, the coaches there, are amazing people. Some of the most amazing people I've met in my life. And, I still talk to Ricky and Sarah on a regular basis. So as a full-time assistant there, mainly, I was the guy on the road at University of Maine. It just was the way that it kind of worked out. So I was out in the rinks watching games, doing a lot of the traveling and things like that year. And, it'll be cool to see those kids come in this year, just with how recruiting was, back then. A lot of those kids are just now getting there. So it was pretty cool. And then, I took off to take over at Nichols College for 2 years. And then, this year I ended up at Chatham University, from Ohio originally. So it was a nice opportunity to get closer to my family and, be back in the Midwest.
So let's talk. We were talking about recruiting a little bit before the episode started, and tell us the difference now opposed to a couple of years ago, like you just mentioned with Mercyhurst. These girls are just coming to college now, but they were recruited in 8th, 9th grade. Right? How different is it now? What restrictions has the NCAA put on you?
Yeah. So last spring, we then at the NCAA level, we passed a rule where basically, you cannot contact anybody before June 15th of after their sophomore year. So, that's going to, it used to be where you talk to the coach and different things like that. And, kids could come on unofficial visits and stuff, but now it's, really hard and fast where, you can't have any contact with those kids, prior to June 15th. There's no, visits or anything like that, which is done in mind of the players, right? It's, we're looking out for them. It just got out of control and now we're curving it back, right? And so that's kind of why it was done that way. That is a Division I rule only. Division III, like we are here at Chatham, like you can contact anybody electronically, anytime. We don't have the same restrictions. But, we're not necessarily, by nature doing that. We're focused on, juniors and seniors, especially the seniors. And, we'll start maybe talking to some sophomores and things like that, depending on how you operate your timeline. But, it's just a different animal just because we don't have the scholarships. We're academic, it's all merit-based and academic-based financial aid. There's no athletic aid at the Division III level. So
there's just so much difference in developing from a 9th to 10th to the 11th, 12th graders, right? So
yeah, I think it's the development side, like you said, and I think it's also, we change our minds as human beings. We change our minds, between now and 5 o'clock, let alone trying to decide what university, what's right for me, what do I want to study, all those type of things come into play there. So, and everything like that. So I think that was a big piece of it too, is, letting those student athletes be ready to make those decisions.
Let's talk about recruiting. And is it different recruiting girls as, let's say, you were recruited to play in college?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Especially the men's hockey side is, much more older, the junior A level and everything like that. The guys take those few extra years to play juniors, whereas on the women's side, we still have you get one gap year, and everything. So, you might have some kids take that post-grad year to develop or, to see what other options come to them. But, we're getting the student athlete at 18, out of high school and things like that. So it's just different, from that standpoint. You're getting 21, 21-year-old men on the male hockey side of the house, whereas we're getting the 18, 19-year-olds. So that from the, there is that difference, and everything. So
is there a specific organization, league? Is there something that your go-to that you, I believe, I know as coaches, I coached in juniors for 10 years. So I know that, okay, well, you kind of favor going in one way or another when you're looking at players. Is that something that you go to a lot, or?
I mean, I always answer
all
that
over the
question.
place.
Yeah, I always answer that question with, I will go anywhere. I will look under every rock, nook, and cranny for the right person for our program. And I think most coaches are that way. We watch the high level leagues, the PWHL in Ontario, the Tier 1 USA Hockey, the preps, New England Prep School, Minnesota High School, we're all over the place, right? So, and then the Tier 2, nationals, Tier 2, state tournaments, things like that, but you've got, kids that are in the Carolinas that are really good hockey players. You've got kids that are in Florida that are really good hockey players, and they just may not have the resources to, get to those places or play at that level. So there's nothing wrong with that, and then it's on us as coaches to do the homework and find those kids.
Are you traveling to those games? Or, is it a lot of it in person, or are you doing a little bit in person and more online before you choose where you're going?
Yeah. So the best way, women's hockey is different than like the men's side, where women's hockey is very showcase based. So tournaments, we're in one location for a weekend, and, we're going to see, there's tournaments early on in the year where there's like 64 teams, so in 2 weekends, I'm going to see 128 teams, and stuff. So, there's other tournaments in the, East Coast where some of those teams do come to that are off the beaten path, and they end up at those smaller showcases where maybe it's an 8-team tournament. So we do a lot in person. I think, it's a lot in person early on before our season starts. And then as the year progresses, it shifts itself to a lot more online video, and utilizing the resources that are out there, to access that stuff. Because we've got a small staff, and as most Division III schools do, we can't, be out on the road when we've got games. We got to be with our team. So it's an easy way when I'm on the bus to throw on a game on my iPad or something like that, or look at profiles and things like that to continue to be, on top of things. So it works out well.
And I want to just clarify, so I can understand it, that new recruiting rule at the D1 level. So you said June 15th of the sophomore year. Is that June 15th leading into their sophomore year, or June 15th after they've completed? Okay.
After they've completed. So like this coming June 15th will be the first time that for like it's women's hockey, the men, the rule is a little different, just with how because they deal with the OHL draft and things like that. But for women's hockey, it's June 15th after your sophomore year. So like this coming June will be the first time that the graduating class of 2022 can be contacted by the Division I schools, and everything.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mike, is there anything in particular that you're looking for in players when you're going through the profiles, or are you just strictly going to video?
Academics are probably the first thing I look at. It's the easiest way to filter kids out that I just, that won't.
Can they get in your school? Right.
Yeah, that won't be successful. So academics is probably one of the first things my filtering tools. And then it is video. I may just search through based on academics and then just look at those kids. And then there's days where I search by position and things that we need, or and stuff like that. Are we looking for centers? Are we looking for forwards in general? D, goalies, things like that. But academics is really my first filter. And then I'll go through and watch video.
When you say you're going to go through and watch video, tell us a little bit about that process. Are you going to a certain platform? Are you just looking for video on? If a player wanted to get video in front of a coach, what would you recommend they do?
I use Google to be completely honest. Whatever, and then whatever site you have will pop up through that, and everything. So, I've got, accounts with all the, like you guys at Elite, I'm on there. I've got accounts with NCSA and all the other ones in Sports Recruit, things like that. Right. So wherever your video is hosted, if it's there, I'll find it, and stuff. and everything like that. I mean, at the same time, sometimes YouTube is where, those kids just host it there, or, there's a glitch with something and then I can find it there. So, Google's probably my first thing, just to find the highlight tape and, the 2 to 4 minutes or whatever it is, and stuff that's there. And then, if I like what I see, I'll either reach out to the kid or their coach and try and get more, a full game or what have you. I mean, the biggest thing for me is, Minnesota high school does a great job of streaming their games and they put them on YouTube. And so, I can sit here and watch a ton of Minnesota high school, games. I can watch 2 or 3 in a day if I want to, and stuff, and, get some pretty good evals because it's really good quality. So, that's the nice thing. But, I like the 2 to 3 minute video clip, of, things you do well with the puck, things you do well without the puck, defensive play, offensive play. I don't want to just see you scoring goals when those might be the only 3 goals you scored all year, and everything, right? I want to get a snapshot of who you are. If you're a D, I want to see you playing in the D zone and battling in front of the net, making breakout passes, things like that. Cause that's what you're going to do more of, for us than you are going to be scoring goals necessarily. Right. And everything like that. Goalies, I want to see time where you're in a penalty kill situation, right? That's going to be the most time you move consecutively, in the zone. You can show your big saves and your breakaway saves at the end, but I want to see how you move. I want to see where you put the puck on your, rebounds. How are you fighting through traffic? I always use PK just because that's,
Sure.
most likely when you're going to see the most shots for the goalies, and stuff, and then I prefer the goalie video to be out from above, but I know a lot of goalies have used the GoPro and put it behind. That's fine. I can see angles and stuff like that, but, when it's out above the, by the blue line and that's the angle, then we can see your depth in the net, what you're giving up, and things like that. So, it helps.
Spoken like a true goalie right there.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So once you go through all that video, do you make your decision on that, or are you planning a visit or making a phone call, or what's the next step?
I have certainly made decision on kids on video. Sometimes it's just not feasible to get there depending on where they're from. I do typically like to see at least one, game in person or one weekend in person. But, sometimes that's just not the reality. If the kid stands out and she's good, we're going to go after her. So, I think, the video allows, it either backs up what I see in the summer, which typically ends up being more of a skill based, like we get to really evaluate the skill set of those kids because they're just not with their team. So there's not much team play going on in systems. So we can see their skill. Whereas, once we get in season, we can see their team play a little bit better, and how they're making decisions and things like that. So, but it is possible for, us to make a decision on video, and everything. So just kind of depends on the individual.
I want to just make a point here that Coach O'Grady, for those who are listening, whether you're a player or a parent who might be listening to this episode, when we asked him what he does for recruiting, his simple answer was, I go to Google. And we've heard that over and over as Coach Paul and I have interviewed, hundreds of coaches asking him, what do they do? It's the most simple answer, right? Just go to Google, and that will tell a lot about a player. Not only do you find video, but what else do you find about that player in those first page of results? Do you find good things or bad things? Do you find video? Do you find their profiles? Is it hard to find them because they've got a very similar name? So when you're looking at yourself as a player, if you have a really unique name, then it's going to be very, very easy to find stuff about you, or there's just nothing going to be out there about you. But if you have a more common name, you have to do a little bit more work, be more proactive to make sure that you things about you can be found inside Google. Because if I do a search for Mike Nelson, well, there's 10,000 Mike Nelsons in the United States alone, right? If I do a search for a really unique name, Google's going to have a very easy time to find a few things about that person. So just, really be conscious of that. Coaches are using Google, and what they find about you is very important. And that's one of the things that we do at Elite Junior Profiles is you'll find the things that we do. So I don't use anybody else's name. I'll use my own son's name. But when we do a Google search for the name, what are we finding about you right in this first search of results, which is what these coaches are using. So make sure to pay attention to it because it does matter.
And the fact that Google has recognized us as a major hub. So anybody with a profile, with Elite Junior Profile, will be near the top of the first page and easily accessible for coaches, which is very important, absolutely important. Time is money, and in the recruiting process, that could be the difference between getting somebody and not getting the person you want, right? So having everything easily accessible. Mike, let me ask you this. I know, talking about when your time at Nichols, your AD made a statement about how you have changed the culture of that program in the short period of time of 2 years that you were there. Any golden nuggets for coaches out there, for players when they're talking about, the culture? What is that? And is there any nuggets that you can share with us?
All right. Yeah, I love this question. I got lucky, and here's why I always say that. I got when I took over at Nichols and even here, they were ready for the change. They, like, every single player that was coming into that program or returning to that program was ready for the change. They wanted a change. So they were ready, for it. And so when we kind of explained, hey, this is how we're going to do things, and stuff like that, it's exactly what we did. And it was awesome, but they were ready for it. And that's why, it's not some, big secret or anything like that. I think I've taken, steps to gather a lot of information at both places and ask a lot of questions, when I first get there, from the players, and figure out what they liked, what they didn't like, different things like that, and everything, just to, because there's going to be something that they did like, and everything, and so we don't want to necessarily, change that, right? We want to keep the things they liked, but then adjust on the things that they, that they weren't happy with. And so that's been the biggest thing, for us, is doing that and gathering that information, and then being able to kind of, make a plan from there. So it was pretty cool. It was a little different here, some things I did at Nichols that I'm like, well, I don't feel like I need to do those things here. And, there's some things that, that I did very similar, and everything. So it was pretty cool to kind of see that.
Right. Every team's different, right? The makeup is different, personalities, character, and that's it's very important as a coach. I'm going into my second full season here at University, and it's a different makeup here.
Yep. We
had a ton of freshmen last year, so that was our foundation. That was our process. Okay, and you're right. We had 4 seniors. So what did you like? What don't you like?
Right.
Exactly right. And we took that and we added to it, and we got some fresh legs in there, and we got another class coming in this year. Hopefully we can add to that and get us back to where we need to be. So I agree with that 100%.
What's 1 or 2 things that you do specifically and intentionally to help establish or build the culture early in the season, Coach?
I think, here it was really, so we've had a program for, since the early, inception of NCAA. We're one of the oldest Division III women's hockey programs in the country. So, we've had a long history, and it's been up and down, and we wanted to, usher in a new era that, that was the focus. You see it on our social media, things like that. And so I think that was the biggest focus, and just, kind of starting fresh and, kind of taking it forward. And that's exactly what, what we've done, and everything. And it started that way, which has been really cool, and stuff. So that was the biggest focus. And just, and then, I mean, just like every coach, we talk buy-in every day. We talk, this is what we want, what we'd like to do. And, this is how we want to do it. And you got to do it together, because if you're trying to do it, you're separated, it's not going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for you in the future. I know you've got a couple of stepping stones already in the last couple of years. Is there anything in the future that you'd like to get to, or you plan on being around at Chatham for quite a while?
Yeah, the best way to answer that question is, I'm happy here. I'm really happy here, and eventually I want to be a D1 head coach, but who knows when that'll happen. Right now I'm extremely happy here, and just starting to kind of establish everything, and again, close to my family and things like that. So I'm enjoying the time while I'm here, and looking forward to keep building and taking steps forward.
How is the difference in communicating with the players during the game, let's say, opposed to men? Is there a different tone? Is there a different mentality?
No, I don't. During the game, I don't think so. I think it's the same thing. I mean, I think, like every player, no matter what gender they are, knows when they screw up, right? Like it doesn't matter. And so you take the same approach. Like they know they messed up, and you just, hey, like, go get it again. Like, here's what we did, or, here's what we could have done there. And, you let them see their options, and then you send them back out and try it again, and that's the best way. I mean, best way I found it to be. I think the difference, that I found is that, the men care more about where I've been, what my resume is, who I played for, those type of things. And it's changed, over the years, certainly now. Whereas, the biggest difference I found when I made the switch was the female athlete, just, they want to be connected with, can you teach me? Can you connect with me? And those type of things. And I think that has shifted now to where I think it's equal parts on both sides, of the connecting. I mean, there's a lot of quotes out there where, about the players knowing, hey, like, we care about you. And once they realize that you care about them, they're willing to go through a wall for you. So, I think that's the cool part, and stuff. So the communication's the same, when you get back to the bench and, hey, head up, you made a mistake, we'll get it again, and everything. So, you kind of go from there, but there's really not much difference in how you approach those conversations during the game, I don't think.
So for girls that are, 14, 15, 16 years old, they're playing, let's say, AA hockey. They have a dream of getting to college and playing hockey in college. What advice would you give them? Let's give them, a pointer or two of, if they were to come up to you and see you at the rink and say, hey, Coach O'Grady, I really want to play at Chatham, or I really want to play, women's hockey in college. What can I do? What would you say to them?
You are your best advocate, right? I mean, don't wait for coaches to reach out to you. There's a lot of kids in each class, and we're not just recruiting in the United States, we're recruiting all over the world, and stuff. So that's a big pool. So, you are your best advocate. Reach out to kids, or reach out to coaches, reach out and talk to, the coaches, and do your research. If you want to study, aeronautical engineering, find the school that has hockey with aeronautical engineering, right? You're going to school for your education, and so you got to find that, that niche. I think at the Division III level, you got to do a little more research than you maybe at the Division I level, just because some of those schools are bigger and have more majors, and I mean, certainly there are a lot of Division III pro schools that, have all the right majors and things like that. And there's some that are, niche schools that have and do what they do really, really well, and so, do your research on those universities and, figure out what's right fit for you. Is it city? Is it rural? Is it East Coast, West Coast, West Coast? Is it, in, close to home, further from home, and things like that, Those are all factors that play into it. And, I can't tell you those answers, only you can answer those questions for yourself. So once you have that list, then you reach out to the coaches, and then, you go from there.
Set up a visit and come out and see the school, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. And I mean, right now with the way the world is, where we can't visit, every school has virtual tours online, and everything. So, you can do a lot of research, online and go through the virtual tour, and, you'll have some questions, after that, and that's fine. That's when you get to reach out to the coach and say, hey, did the virtual tour, here are my questions, couldn't quite see this really well, or love the look of your athletic center, or, didn't like this, and stuff. And, so utilize, just as much as we Google, you get, the athletes can Google and everything like that. So it works out, nicely where you can do that, and then, that's an easy way to see schools and kind of answer some of those questions as you continue moving through this process.
Well, we definitely talk about the players have to be proactive now, right? They have to have their resume, which is their profile. And I think it's very important to get it out in front to the coaches, stay in contact with the coaches, set up visits. There's a lot more players playing that now that are more competitive, and it's impossible for coaches to see everybody. So, and that's why we created Elite Junior Profiles, to make that connection, make it easily accessible to reach out to coaches.
Paul, I know you're a big preacher on being proactive. That every player has, like Coach O'Grady just said, their best own advocate. What are some things that specific actions that players and maybe their parents with their parent support should be taking specifically in terms of taking action to be proactive and be their best advocate?
I think the biggest thing is, video, like finding a way to find video. I mean, and nowadays, there's no reason why you can't get it. And it doesn't have to be mom and dad's cell phone camera. Most of the rinks have Live Barn, most of the rink, if you're, on the men's side, there's the fast hockey and things like that. So it's a little more, produced well, and things like that. Some of the Live Barn cameras are amazing, and some of them, aren't great, right? Depending on the facility. So, you can find video, but it's going to take you time to figure out, hey, okay, I was at this rink and here's where I can do it, and things like that, and stuff. So like that's a huge thing, in terms of being proactive, and, hey, reach out to the coaches. And every coach is different. I like, full games. Like I really do, even if it is just your shifts, and stuff. But I like being able to feel the temperature of the game. Are you guys down by 3? Are you up by 1? And things
How are
like
you
that.
responding to that? Yeah.
And see those situations. But at the same time, there's not enough time in the day to, watch all of those full games. So the highlight clips and the shorter videos help, and everything like that, and then just make sure your coach's information is accessible, because we are going to reach out, even if it is, and everything, even if it is just to double check, the references and things like that, or, get to know your family a little bit. Like, how are mom and dad? Are they, supportive? Are they, in your face about things, stuff like that. And then we do want to talk to your family. We want to talk to your parents. That first phone call, we'd like it to be with you, but, there's nothing wrong with your parents being a part of that. Parents are a huge part of the process. And, ultimately they are one of the biggest, influencers in your life. Right. And so, being able to connect with the parents is just as important as connecting with, the student athlete. At the end of the day, the student athlete may love one school and the parents love a different school for a different reason, and so, that separating factor is going to be like, well, he loves this school or she loves this school. And you know what? We heard from the coach a lot, and stuff. And, whereas we really like this other school, but we never really had that relationship, and so I think that makes a difference, and stuff. But, the more information we have, the better. Most programs have social media and things like that. I mean, we all have Twitters and Instagrams, and, all that stuff. And so, you can learn a lot about a program as a player just by going and following their social media accounts, and stuff like that. So I think that that's a really cool tool for the players to be able to use too, to be able to get an inside idea, especially right now when there aren't students on campus and obviously we can't travel and everything like that. You get to gather some more information.
Yeah.
Social media is very important right now, and it's a tool that can be used, and it could be good or bad depending on the kid. Right? And you get a good insight on the family life, and that's does it check a box, for you in the process.
Right.
Very important. I want to go back to one thing, Lane, here. Pull up on the disc player assessment. This is something, Mike, that we very proud of because this gives it's a player assessment. When you're talking about talking to your players and correcting them and how to communicate with them, everybody's different, right? Yeah. So you've got to learn here, and we have a profile, the enhanced profile, that has the player assessment in it that gives you a real good idea of their character, their personality, and it has a scouting report for coaches. It gives you all the intangibles about that player going in, so you know how to relate and how to coach to get the most out of that player, which I think is valuable for the coaches that have that player, and also for the college coaches to look at, is this kid the right fit for our program, right? So it's just another tool that you can use to make sure that you're not wasting time going for somebody that really wouldn't fit into your culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Or it doesn't fit a certain position when you start getting into real granular parts of recruiting. And some teams already have, 14 returning players, and they need 6 or whatever, 7 specific types of players to fill certain roles on the team. And so this is where the DISC behavioral style a report and assessment in the report can really both help the player and parent understand the individual, the student athlete, and then the coach really understand who they're looking at, who they're going to be coaching, and how to best coach them. So,
yeah, no, that's a great resource. I mean, we certainly, every year we do different things where we adapt and, similar things to the DISC and things like that. So it's certainly a great resource.
One other thing I just wanted to call attention to is Coach O'Grady was saying, making sure you have certain things. Like, I want to check references. Well, then make sure, you just heard that, that's a very common thing for coaches to want, right? So make sure you have that readily available for the coach, which is why we've got these different sections in the profile. The profile sections that we have in the Elite Junior profiles are specifically designed based on interviewing hundreds of coaches and finding out exactly what they want and what they need in order to be able to make a decision. Number 2, only coaches and recruiters that are actually registered on Elite Junior profiles are going to be able to see certain information. In other words, we are hiding personal information, contact information for parents, academic transcripts, things like that are not public. So only registered coaches and recruiters can register for free. There's no charge, but you do have to register. And we do a quick check, make sure it's a bona fide coach before we just let anybody have access, because once they're registered and have access, then they'll be able to access the things that Coach O'Grady was just saying he needs. He wants to be able to pick up the phone or send the parents an email and, have some communication there. Well, that's essential information, but we don't want to share that with the general public. So just a couple of nuances there about our profiles and about coaches and recruiters. Paul, anything else you want to say to wrap up before we get any final comments from Coach O'Grady?
No, I think this has been an enlightening session here that we can, really. I want to, guys that know me, I'm adamant about helping women's sports, and I want girls to know that there's a platform here for all sports, not just hockey, that we have a system in place that can really, really help you gain more exposure to coaches and help. This is your resume. Fill it out with as much information as you can. Give all the coaches the information that they need to evaluate you. And I think we're on to something here. Like Coach O'Grady says, everything that he's looking for, we pretty much have here. And now you have the player assessment in there that gives you that tool to know that, is this the right fit for our culture? And I can't, stress that enough, because that is important. I have a lot of players that message me or email me and they want to come to our program. And that's the first thing I look at. Do you have a profile? Okay. And if you don't, then you need to get one, because I'm not going to waste all my time going through all this information. And if you do, the first thing I'm doing is calling their coach. I want a little background on this kid, and before we even take this thing a step further. So very important, Mike. I appreciate your time and your insight on that. It's I hope the girls out there listening see Elite Junior Profiles as a valuable tool to help them in their path to get to where they want to go. And that's what this is all about. The access that coaches have to their profiles is 24/7. So they're constantly being evaluated. So they need to constantly be upgrading and keeping their profile to date. And I think if they do that, the results will.
Coach O'Grady, any closing comments from you?
I just wanted to say thanks. Appreciate it. I know we're all trying to, create work for ourselves right now and everything like that. And this was awesome. So, I appreciate it. And, again, thanks for the, growing the game and the exposure you're trying to help, provide to players and everything. And I look forward to continuing to keep in touch.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time this morning. It was great learning more about you and the progression of coaching that you've had and the girls that you're helping. And we look forward to watching you and the team compete this coming season. I know we're all anxious to get back on the ice and back on the fields and back to our sports and some normal life. But thanks again for your time this morning. And for those who will listen to this episode, we appreciate your time. Hope you found some great, valuable information and some insights from Coach O'Grady. And appreciate you listening to another episode of the Elite Junior Profiles podcast.